Um, Houston, I think we have a problem. Just a small problem. I'm gonna have to get back to it. Hello, Minecrafters and Redstoners. I'm Natanis Likens, and welcome back to another episode of our Mad Scientist series. And, you can see I'm stuck in a hole. Sort of. I thought this would be a funny intro. Let me know down in the comments. Anyway, so what are we doing in this hole? Exumavoid has issued a, not really a challenge, but like a, hey, see if you can make this work kind of thing. And we're going to go over that real quick and exactly what it is. So up here, you can see that I've got a bunch of cauldrons filled with lava, and we've got a very small area here for some spawning. And we are going to be spawning in some cows. Now, here is what is supposed to happen. This is the idea. The baby cows get pushed underneath all these cauldrons, and when they grow up into adult cows, they actually catch on fire because of the lava cauldrons. However, and this is where Exuma was saying, hey, see if you can get this to work. It'd be a really cool idea for a farm. And the issue is that sometimes the adult cows will get pushed out of the killing chamber. And that's kind of what you saw at the beginning of this episode, where I spent some time at one of the variations that I've been working on, and we made a whole bunch of cows, and apparently they decided to form a crop circle. No? Okay, I'll work on the jokes. But anyway, so the idea here is, again, that we are going to be spawning in. We're going to be collecting a whole bunch of cows, specifically babies. And once these guys grow up, the cauldrons, as you did see, are supposed to cause the cows to die. And yeah, we're going to try and figure that out. I've got some thoughts on that and some ideas, but so far it's partially working. Okay, it's partially working. I gotta iron it out a little bit and figure out some details. But let's go over some of my findings so far with trying to do this. First and foremost, obviously we can't stop the glitching. They are going to glitch out. So far in iteration 3, I haven't had that issue, but iteration 3 has not been running as long, and we do have an issue that I am trying to combat. And over here, I've got some cows. As you can see, we've got a bunch of cows in there, and this problem is twofold. And as of right now, I have not found a solution for both problems. The first problem is sometimes the baby cows don't get pushed out. So they're trapped inside of the breeding chamber. I'm not really sure why. Every other version of cow farms that I've seen, the babies should get pushed out. However, in my attempts here with this one, the cows are not getting pushed out. That might be because we have the AFK section and we don't have the same, like, 4 wide area in order to push the cows out. So I don't know if we're going to be able to make one that is 100% AFK-able. It may be something that you have to come and do every so often. Kind of like Tango Tech's old farm is what I'm thinking, and I do have thoughts on another version that is going to use elements of Tango's old farm. Mostly the spawning areas, or the breeding chambers, more correctly. That way we got like a 4x4 4x4, a 3x3 area that the baby cows can get pushed out. Unfortunately, that does mean that you're not going to be able to AFK at it, because it would require that we be above where the cows are in order to have a maximum area of baby cows getting pushed out of the way and out of the breeding chamber. But yeah, so sometimes these cows will get, the babies will get stuck in the breeding chamber and they will grow up and you'll end up with more cows. Originally I only had 4 in here, and as you can see we got a little bit more than 4. I'm not exactly sure how many, but we got a little bit more than 4. The other problem that I've noticed, and I've tried combating this in multiple ways, but it just doesn't seem to work, and you can see it to the right. Sometimes the babies will not go into the killing chamber. They just flat out won't go. They will be stubborn and fight the water current the entire time. This is partially because the babies are trying to track back to the adult cows, because if you didn't know, the babies will be attracted to adults and they will try to follow the adults. I know this because on this version I had a whole bunch of babies stuck in it, and I decided to try and redesign this a little bit. So I put a hole in it and all the babies escaped. Well, there was one adult cow over there, and I noticed that all of the babies went straight for that cow. Like, we had a herd of, I don't know, probably 50 babies chasing down one adult cow, and that was kind of an issue. So we do have the problem that the babies are not going to where they are supposed to. I'm not really sure how to combat that, because in order for us to get the babies underneath the cauldrons, there has to be an opening, which means that the babies potentially have a spot that they can escape through. Now, thinking about it and looking at this right now, I probably could have extended the cauldrons all the way across here and gotten the same effect. Let's just do something real quick. Let's get rid of these guys, because this just did not work. I did try something there. I put some fences? I put some walls down there so that we had that extra little lip. It didn't work. They couldn't actually go underneath these. So one of the things I'm thinking we could do with this version and retry it is extend all the cauldrons out here. Like, make this all cauldrons filled with lava. Okay, filled with lava. And possibly that would solve the issue of babies not making it all the way back to the killing chamber. That does mean that our, well, no, the water is there, so that should be fine, I think. Yeah, the water being there should be fine. We do need to get underneath there and take out those walls, but I'm kind of done with this iteration. I wanted to see what some of the problems were, and as you saw in that intro with this version over here, we did make a crop circle out of cows. They were definitely escaping. Now, the other issue, you can see that I have a chain of chests here. I wanted to see what the drops were, and this is very interesting. So, one of the problems that I noticed is somehow the cows are dying, but they're not getting cooked. As you can see here, we have raw beef, raw beef, raw beef, and raw beef. So we got 3 stacks of raw beef and 4. I'm not really sure how. I'm not really sure where they would have been dying in a way that meant that we are still collecting their meat, but at the same time they're not getting cooked. Yeah, more to come on that as I play around with this and see if I can get it to work. This version also had the same problem where, yeah, originally there was only 4 cows in here, and you can see that we've gotten quite a bit more, I'm not really sure how to keep that from happening. So somehow the babies need to get pushed out, and you can't see it in this version. I decided to put glass on that one so I could see a little bit better. But somehow, you can see we got the water stream there. Somehow the babies were not getting pushed out of it. Again, I'm not really sure how or why they weren't getting pushed out. So I'm going to have to experiment with methods of making sure the cows, or the baby cows, end up where they are supposed to. You can see here that to combat the issue of babies getting just stuck right in the waterways in certain points, like they're pathfinding in such a way that they're just getting stuck in spots. Some of them will filter all the way down to the killing chamber, but very rarely some of them will not, and they'll just stay somewhere. So I was trying to combat that issue, and that's when I decided to put a whole bunch more cauldrons down here in hopes that, you know, we kill them. Because of the water in these sections, that is going to push the drops from them down into our collection/killing chamber, and it will filter down into our chest array down here. So it did work, sort of. We have a couple of spots, like right here, right where these signs are. Baby cows were still getting there, and the adults were somehow surviving. I'm not really sure how. Technically they should be pushed into either this block, that block there, or into this cauldron above. But they were somehow surviving in that one space gap, or more correctly, a 1x2 gap. Yeah, that's a problem that I'm not sure what to deal with. Okay, over on this version, so I made it a little bit taller in hopes that, you know, we can push these cows out of sight of all the babies so that they aren't trying to pathfind back to the adults. It half worked. Again, we got just a scant few amount of babies that will still try to pathfind back to the adults. So I'm thinking with this version, we're probably going to need to go a little bit taller. And by a little bit, I mean quite a bit, actually. We're probably going to need to have the breeding chamber, I don't know, upwards of 40 blocks above the collection chamber, so that the babies aren't trying to pathfind to the adults. I'm going to do some more testing on that. I'm thinking up how to build another one, and that's why there's only these 3 here, because I was noticing, you know, babies are still even 10 blocks above. They're still trying to pathfind to the adults. So, yeah, that is an issue. I also noticed that we still had the same problem where babies were getting stuck in this section. I've come in here, I've thrown together this kind of block area so that the babies are kind of forced to be pushed down and then follow the path. Yeah, I'm not sure how that's going to work just yet. I may have to take out this section of signs and drop down this half slab down to here instead. That should block the water and still allow the babies to get down. No, it won't. Yeah, forget that. It's not gonna work. So yeah, we are still kind of playing around with this. I got a few more ideas that I want to try, and we're gonna make some changes to this to see if I can get the cows to properly flow as they should. I'm not sure if these upside down stairs are going to allow the babies to drop down, and then while they're bouncing, maybe they go down and back a little bit. They hit this, which pushes them down even further, and then they get stuck underneath there and then get pushed along there. Another change that I did make, you can sort of see, we got blue ice down there, So the idea was that the blue eye should help them be pushed along. Wow, we're saying quite a bit. So the problem I've noticed with that is for mobs, that doesn't seem to matter. What I mean by that is because it is a mob, it is trying to swim in water. So it is trying to swim up, which means that it's not actually touching the ice. So the hitbox is not contacting the ice in combination with the water in order to make it move from whatever direction. So instead what's happening is they are trying to swim on top of the water. And right now that is a little bit of an issue, and I'm still trying to figure it out. So yeah, we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board on that. I'm still gonna mess around with this one to see if I can get the cows to properly flow through the system and get to where they need to be. As far as any kind of major changes on that note, I don't know what it's gonna take to keep the cows from pathfinding back into the collection chamber. And I do apologize for moving around a whole lot if that sounded really weird. I dropped my phone. But yeah, so let me get back to this and do some more testing. Maybe we'll find an answer for this, maybe we won't. The biggest problem I'm seeing as of right now is in order to get the baby cows underneath the cauldrons, we need to leave an opening. And the problem with leaving an opening is that they are trying to escape through that opening, which I think is why I have no concrete proof on this. I think what is happening with the raw beef is that they are getting into these blocks here on this corner and suffocating in those blocks instead of burning to death because of the cauldrons. And that is potentially why we are getting raw beef. I'm not 100% sure on that just yet. In order to combat that, I did make this one a little bit bigger. And you know, we haven't AFK'd at this one as long. But you can see here that we did get quite a bit of leather. This was a very short amount of time too. We did get some steak, however, I took it out. Okay, there was some raw beef in this hopper. That's why I arranged this the way I did, is because I wanted to, like, push the raw beef out somewhere else. We could have set up a filter system, however, I didn't really feel like it, mostly because we are just experimenting with how to make this kind of killing chamber work. So that's what I've got on that for now. The other possibility that I'm thinking is that we make some form of bubble vader to push the cows up into it, but the problem with doing that is we don't have a collection we don't have a collection system underneath, because that means we have a hole in it, and that hole has got to be something like this in order to have a water column going up in the middle. So I don't see that as a possibility, especially for collecting everything. There are a couple of other ideas. I just had a thought. So with this one over here, you can't really see it because I covered this up with diorite. So we've got these water channels here. And the reason I did this is because I noticed with the babies that they were trying to get out of this section here, and that could cause issues if they like grow up over on this block and start taking fire damage. That fire damage could allow them to glitch through the wall. So what I decided to do on this was to have water pushing so that it ends up right here. Actually, let's just go ahead and delete that. So if the babies try to walk out this way, the water is going to push them back. That was the idea. It didn't actually work. and I'm not exactly sure why it didn't actually work. Other than potentially we had the same problem with the babies trying to pathfind to the adults. So this whole section here was not even needed. But what I am thinking is maybe we could, instead of pushing the babies back along this way, we have them go underneath the entire thing, come out through a water elevator. Let me just dig out a little bit here. So having them come out in a water elevator like back here up into that. And then this whole section back here is just going to push them into our killing chamber. So that is a possibility, but yeah, I've got to figure out how to get them underneath these cauldrons without allowing them a area where they can potentially try to pathfind out of. And that is one of the problems I have been trying to solve and think about. I did decide to go ahead and record this section. This is completely unplanned. But yeah, we are like working on the idea, we're working on the concept, and it's just going to take some experimenting. Anyway, I've been ranting for a little while, so let me get back to experimenting with this style of cow farm, and I'll get back to you guys when I have some more findings or some more thoughts, or maybe we succeed along the way. I don't know. I have no idea how long this is going to take. So yeah, let me get back to it and I'll be right back. Hang on. So, before I clean up the rest of these cows, you can see that a whole bunch of them had glitched through into the front. Now, we still got the problem of these guys not going to where they are supposed to. This, again, this partially worked. If we go back here, we look, yeah, you can see we did get more leather and a few more cooked steaks in here, so they are getting back to the killing chamber. We're still somehow getting raw beef, though. A lot more raw beef. Okay, I gotta figure out a different, I gotta figure out a different way to get them into the killing chamber, because this is clearly not working. Completely. It is working, just not completely. And they are still somehow managing to fight the water currents. So, we're gonna need a redesign here. So let me clean these guys up. Okay. What did we learn? Well, the water current, the pushers to get them from point A to point B, are ineffective. They aren't going to where we need them. That's the first problem. The second problem, and this, you guys didn't see this because I was trying to clean up everything. We actually had 2 cows up on the railing. You can see right there that I was stopped. I'm not even sure how they got up on the rails. So I come back and I'm sitting like right here And I'm like, wait a minute, why have I stopped? There's a cow on my right and there's a cow on my left. So clearly they were like drawn to me, so I'm assuming the one on the left is what stopped me. Now my question is, why were they there? And my second question is, how did they get there? Like, where did they glitch through? Now, the other problem, you can't see, I've redesigned this a little bit. I wanted to test something, because we still got issues with the babies not being pushed out. And as you can clearly see, we've got a whole lot more cows in there than I initially put. I cleared this out, put 8 on this side, I put 8 on that side, and they are still somehow staying in the breeding chamber. I'm not sure why the babies are not getting pushed out. We did change out the walls for fences down here. There was a couple of changes I wanted to do. At first I decided to try and have that be completely signs, so that hopefully the babies would fall through even more, and you should be able to figure out the obvious flaw in that thought. The adults were just falling straight through, so that didn't work. And this redesign of it clearly doesn't work because we've got a lot more cows in there than we're supposed to. So what I did is I put a chain. Let's just go ahead and clean these up. I was trying to think of a way that we can still hold them in there and hopefully push them out, or push the babies out. So I put a chain through here because I was like, well, maybe the babies are getting stuck on the half slab. A chain should work because it's got a smaller area and it should allow the babies to like clip through, or just not really clip through, but it should have a smaller area. That means that the babies still get pushed. Again, they are somehow getting stuck. They're not getting pushed out like they should. The babies are able to fight the water current and just stay with the adults. This definitely needs to be covered though. We need... Give me a minute, because I need to find a way to guarantee push them. They're fighting the water current, so they're not going to where they need to. I have a few thoughts on a couple of things that we could do, but I'm not really sure if any of those are going to work, so I need to do some testing. We're gonna have to come back to this after some testing to see if I can produce some effects that I'm thinking of. First effect is we could have adults in certain places that the babies are like, oh, there's an adult there, I can go to that one, and then they try to get there, which causes them to go to where we need to. That is a possibility. So let me get back to it. I'm gonna figure this out. All right, we're coming right back. So as you can see, the well, that one finally made its way down, but the babies are like fighting the water current, so they are not going to where they are supposed to. I'm not sure how this adult managed to fall through. Yeah, he fell through. I'm not sure how, but he fell through. I changed out the fence post for a full block, trying to see if maybe that'll help push the babies out. Maybe that's causing the problem, but I don't know if you can tell. There's a baby right there. He's not getting pushed. He's getting stuck in the collision of all the others. I don't think the AFK ability of this farm is actually going to work. I don't think you're going to be able to AFK at this at all. Right now, from what I am seeing with how the babies are not getting spit out of the system, I don't think this AFK idea is going to work. Or at least not in this configuration. I may have to reconfigure everything. I don't know why they're not getting ejected. That is so weird. The only thing I can think is that they're getting stuck on the collision box of the adults. So they're bouncing off of the adults and getting pushed back into the breeding chamber. That's the only thing I can think of. Then these guys have managed to get up on top of the chain. Okay, hang on. Let's do this. Yes, because that's where I wanted you to spawn. Okay, so we're going to spawn in a couple more cows. Oh, I can't see it now to do that. Okay, that's fine. We'll do it this way. I can't see you. And again, the baby is right there. And this guy is down here for some reason. Okay. So we got one baby that got stuck right there. It's getting stuck on the collision box of the adult. I may have to rearrange the breeding chamber. We may have to go with a completely different setup. That's the first order of business. Second order of business is... Okay, so they're all... Okay, so that idea did work. They are all now following this adult. One of the things I was going to do is have the adult like centered in this breeding chamber. So the idea is their AI is looking for an adult to follow. That is how they are programmed. So by having this adult up here, it should trick their AI into trying to follow him or her or whatever. Which means that instead of being grouped up at the entrance and possibly glitching through, these guys should grow up right in that vicinity and hopefully get burned by the lava cauldrons. That is the idea. And looking at it, the babies are doing exactly what I want them to do. So that's first change I need to make. We need to have an adult right there. Probably with a different setup because I'm afraid the cow's going to fall into the cauldron. So we'll probably need to change that a little bit. Maybe like cover up the cauldrons a little bit. I was thinking it'd be interesting to double this as a lava farm. Like double up on that. The other thing we still need to figure out, and I know I killed a whole bunch of them, but we need to figure out how to prevent this. I'm still not even sure why we're getting so much raw beef in there. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Hi. I don't really care about that. I think I'm eventually going to remove all the heads that I don't care about anymore. I need to go reconfigure that. Okay, we're ranting. Let me get back to it and I'll bring you guys back in. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we are back in replay mod. So I did a 30-minute test and I recorded it in order to see what is actually going to benefit us more. The magma block and ice setup, where the magma block is directly underneath a water source, so it should create the suction to pull down the baby cows, and then they're now inside the water flow and it pushes them, so that will eliminate them trying to swim, or using honey blocks. So the thing with honey blocks is you're not allowed, honey blocks keep you from being able to jump, which means that the baby should not be able to swim upwards. In theory, I don't know if that's actually how it works. Find a more technical Minecrafter for more information on that. But that was kind of my idea, is maybe the honey blocks will keep the baby cows from actually swimming against the current and thus being pushed into the collection chamber. I've already watched a little bit of this, and some interesting things happen here. And a lot of the theory behind what Exuma wanted to do, I have been able to figure out how to keep things working properly. So let's just go ahead and watch this a little bit. We're at the beginning of it, and we're just going to wait until we see some babies. So you got one on the left, and yes, it goes down the water currents perfectly fine. Now, over here on the right, we should see another baby come here in a second, or maybe two, right there. Now, you will notice that it did turn red right when it hit this spot right here, so it is taking a little bit of damage on them. It's not enough to kill them. Okay, so left, you just saw another one go perfectly through. So either one of these setups seems to break the AI from trying to pathfind back up to the adults, and thus they aren't staying swimming in certain spots. Which is interesting, because that was something I was just trying to figure out how to solve, and just by happen chance, both of these seem to solve that issue. Now, the other thing is, once they get close enough to this adult cow that's up here, let's go ahead and pause. We need to go talk about the killing chamber. So, that adult right there is to cause the babies to pathfind it, which has a double benefact. So first off, when it gets down to this lower section, they are now far enough away from these adults up here that the AI locks onto this guy, and they no longer are getting jammed up inside this collection chamber here, which is really cool and very, very helpful, because it also has the side effect of all of the babies are now centralized in all of these cauldrons, which means we don't have to worry about the babies actually glitching through the walls and ending ending up outside of the farm. So let's go ahead and put this on. Yep, you saw one grow up right there. There's another one. And they are getting killed by the lava inside the cauldrons. So we are getting cooked steak as opposed to raw beef, which is amazing. Honestly, I don't know why we were getting raw beef to begin with. And once I jump back into the actual world, you're going to see that we got a nice surprise. There is absolutely no raw beef in the collection at all. And the 30 minutes of AFKing produced quite a bit of drops. So yeah, this seems to have worked out a lot better than I could have hoped. And it was just with a few changes, like adding this cow up here for the pathfinding to take over. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump right back into our world and talk a little bit more about it. Right, like I said, we're jumping right back over in here, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this. So first off, the killing chamber and everything, because that's where we kind of left off, and I seem to have left a few blocks out there. When I copied and pasted that one over here, the whole track system was messed up, so I had to completely redo that. But anyway, because the babies are being attracted to this adult right here, that does mean that they are never going to the edges, which means that we aren't dealing with any of the cows actually glitching through the walls and ended up in this section. You will notice that I put a wall barrier here in order to collect any cows and try to figure out where they were actually glitching through, which surprisingly was not the back. They were actually glitching a lot more in the front. From that previous clip, you saw that I had a whole bunch of steak on the front end in the ground there. So it is interesting to me that that was happening. I'm not exactly sure why, other than I think because the babies were getting stuck in the streams of the water. In other words, they were swimming and not going to where they were supposed to. I think that was causing them to pile up in those sections. And then if they grew up and were close enough to the wall, they were getting glitched through the wall, because technically their body was half in and half out. And because we did use glass blocks, they're not going to suffocate. So that means that they could just walk straight through. So with that being said, I do think that the honey actually is going to be better for this. There is the risk of the babies dying before they get to the collection chamber on the magma blocks, but I know I didn't show the entire replay recording of AFKing here. It didn't seem to matter. They would take a little bit of damage, but they would still end up going in there. They didn't actually die on that. But for safety reasons, I will say that the honey is probably a little bit better, especially for building. You're not going to have to worry about taking damage on those. The other thing I wanted to say is, surprisingly, we don't have any raw beef in the system at all. There's no raw beef. It's all been cooked. And for whatever reason, we also got a lot more steak than we did leather, which is kind of interesting, because in my other tests with the other versions, we were actually getting more leather than we were raw beef or cooked steak. So this seems to have reversed. I'm not really sure why that is. I'm not sure which one actually has a higher drop value, but it's interesting to me that on the previous versions we were getting more leather, and on this version we're getting more steak. So that is interesting. Like, I'm not sure what to make of that. That's kind of like, what in the world moment. It's completely different from the 3 previous versions. But yeah, this seems to be working just fine. And with, again, with this cow up here, because the babies are trying to pathfind to it, they are not going to the edges of it, and because we have a bigger zone, bigger kill chamber, that does mean that the babies are not going to glitch through the walls when they grow up. Instead, they are all going to be centralized on this adult. Wherever this adult is in this little box here, the babies are going to be almost directly below it, or at least trying to pull up directly below it. Now, as far as the actual rate of babies, I think keeping the farm smaller is going to be your best bet. So, I was thinking you could potentially like make this bigger and have a lot more cows producing babies. Like maybe we had a whole nother double section over here that leads into the backside, and then we can extend this rail line out and have like 4 breeding chambers instead of just 2. But thinking about it, with how many babies we were actually producing, we were producing them at a rate fast enough that I think it's legit, but are slow enough that it is, you know, viable. However, it was still fast enough that I am worried about flooding this chamber with too many babies. Because we do have to worry about, you know, how long it takes them to actually grow up, which I believe in real world time is about 5 minutes. Yep, you saw another one right there, and yeah, so I think this is the best setup we're going to get for using the cauldrons as the kill method in order to collect steak and leather. Now, alongside that, I want to talk a little bit about this minecart track. So this minecart track for AFK was really just my first thought. It was, okay, we need to be, if we're going to be AFKing, we need to be facing one direction. And anytime we go past the cows, they need to be in front of that direction. That's why this rail track goes in such an odd direction. Now, I do think that if we changed this and had the breeding chambers going this direction, just throw down some blocks to kind of demonstrate. Going in that direction instead, we could potentially just have a single rail line that is going left to right. Grab some more blocks. Going left to right across this instead of this kind of loop. So instead we would be going back and forth this way. Now you could set it up in that kind of fashion too, or you could set it up the way that I have it. That's completely up to you on which way you want to go, and if you've got the rails. It would be cheaper for rails if you did this left to right as opposed to this circle. However, the circle was kind of, in the back of my mind, the circle was done to also facilitate, you know, another redstone contraption attached to it that would replenish your wheat. As far as that is concerned, that is not something I am going to be working on right now. That may be something that I add to this later, and if I do, I'll bring you guys back in to talk about it and see if we can make it. But for now, I think this is a proof of concept. This is a prototype of the type of farm that Exuma was suggesting. What do you guys think? Does this work? Is this viable? Is this something that you would really want? I am going to do a tutorial for this, and hopefully we'll get the dimensions correct, because I did notice that this is, I don't know if you'll notice if I come right about here. Maybe you can see it. It is kind of off a little bit. That was a mistake that I did not catch when I was building this. So if I do a tutorial, I am going to try and fix that mistake. And, you know, we'll have a new cow farm design out there for people to use if they so want, or improve upon. Because like I said, this is just a prototype, and it does seem to work pretty well. And I will admit, I do think you only need about 8 cows in each one of these breeding chambers. Any more than that, and you run the risk of flooding the killing chamber or collection chamber, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, 8 cows is probably the limit for each of the breeding chambers. And then you could potentially like break up those breeding chambers, because I did notice there was a little bit of an issue with, you know, 8 cows being in one area. It only happened a few times, and then on this final version I never saw it happen again, and that was cows somehow glitching through it and falling. That's actually why I started using the walls in it, and then I switched over to using fences, because I was thinking, well, maybe the fences are part of what's causing, or sorry, the walls is part of what's causing the babies to stay up there in the breeding chamber, as seen in the previous versions where we had way more cows in the breeding chamber than what I actually started with. So yeah, there you go. There you guys have it. We do have a prototype for this. It is working, and I will be making a tutorial a little bit later for this, in case you guys really want to use it. So let me know what you guys think. Is this something you really want? I mean, I will be, again, for the 100th time, I will be making a tutorial for it, for those that want it, but I really do need some feedback on what you guys think. Does this work? Do you want this? Let me know down in the comments section. And I will see you guys next time when we tackle, well, I don't know what we're going to tackle. We're going to tackle something. That's the whole point of this little series, is just trying to flex my brain and flex my creativity and see what kind of crazy thing we can build. So until then, guys, have a good one, and I hope you enjoyed. And if you really enjoyed, think about subscribing, and I will see you next time. Bye!